Alright, so it's time again for a non-audio video, and this time it's about money. And the inspiration for this video came from a lot of people around me that I see struggling with money. This struggle is most of all the management of their money. And honestly, I've been there myself. But because I've learned the, well, I call it art of managing my money, I've become much more financially stable. And today it's all about sharing that skill, because in the end, financial stability is a beautiful thing. Now, let me first cover the costs of this video with my sponsor, Skillshare.
Wait, what is Skillshare?
Well, Skillshare is an online learning community with a wide variety of creative classes. And I mean, they go from painting to web development to lifestyle. And I'm still diving deep into the color grading subject with the color grading crash course in DaVinci Resolve 16. And I think that people with a trained eye would start to see this now in my, well, newer videos. The whole Skillshare platform is ad-free and costs $10 per month with an annual subscription. As with all of my videos, I do really encourage people to try things themselves and not just take my word for it. So that is why the first 1,000 people to use the link below will get a 2-month free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership, so that you can explore your creativity. And now that I've made a bit of money, let's talk about how I would manage this. And I would like to start with the most boring subject in the world. Budgeting. Because if you're struggling with your financials, you might need a budget. And doing this properly is very important. The biggest budgeting mistake that I made in the past is seeing a budget as a goal, while it actually is a limit. So a budget is not a goal. Like, for instance, trying to spend a maximum of 300 euros on groceries this month. No, a budget is a maximum that you are allowed to spend. The mistake that I made is that I've always looked at the past. So I took my transactions, I categorized them, and then I looked where I was overspending with the goal of trying to not overspend there for the next month. And I figured out that this is not how our brains work. We cannot do that bookkeeping in our heads. Now, to solve this problem, I've switched to a method that I would like to call the envelopes method. One of the ways people used to manage money back in the days was by using simple envelopes, like those things you put on the mail. So not email, but paper. Envelopes, you can put stuff in it. Could be difficult to understand if you're a bit younger. On the payday, they would cash out all their money and split it over a few of those envelopes, and they would write certain goals on it. So one would be for groceries, another one would be for fixed charges, taxes, etc. And when doing this, you're only allowed to spend money from the correct envelope. And this gives you a super good overview of what is going on. Now, I wanted to try this as well, but without the cash, of course. I want to keep my money at the bank. So what I did might sound a bit strange, but I've just opened a few, well, actually a lot of bank accounts. Yeah. And what I did is at every start of the month, I've divided my earnings into these accounts and then only use them for the associated expenses. And this was way easier to get used to than I expected. And what I quickly mentioned was that it gave a lot of rest and calmness in my head, because all of a sudden I could see how much I still could spend on things like fuel or whatever this month, while before I really needed to calculate this, like, oh, I still need to pay this, so I might have just... Some people know what I'm talking about. This whole using the envelope method, I think that a lot of people think like, hey, I can do that without opening all these bank accounts. I can just do it in a spreadsheet. Yeah. That doesn't work. I don't think our brains work that way or something, but I've been there, I tried that, I've done that, I failed. It doesn't work. So to give you a little bit of insight, these are the categories and thus the bank accounts that I'm using. So the first one is called groceries and fuel. And I also like to call this the day-to-day essentials. Second one is fixed costs. And this accounts for things like rent, insurances, phone subscriptions, and the rest, YouTube Premium. The third account is for spendings, and this is money to spend on things that are not essential. it's pretty difficult to come up with things that are not essential, but I think that if you walk into Arnhem, that like 60% of the shops sell things that are non-essential. So yeah. Next account is clothing. Yeah, I do buy new clothes sometimes. Sixth one is vacation, pretty simple. With vacation, I also keep in mind that I, well, almost do not have any income. So that's a second thing. It's not only saving up for the trip, but also to bridge the gap. Next one is pretty important one. It's taxes. I try to save up a little bit for my yearly taxes so that it's not a huge slam in the face every year. And the last one is car, and that's maintenance for my car, but also someday a new car. I mean, if you save small amounts for that, it adds up to a lot. So this list is a cool list, but there's one thing missing from this list, and that is savings. Yeah, there are some small savings, but big savings. And what I am saving up for is kind of boring. I call it saving up for a rainy day or an emergency or whatever. And as I said in my How I'm Surviving video, which I'm going to link here, it gives a lot of rest to have an emergency savings account. Now, what this money actually does is transforming an emergency into an inconvenience. And one of these things, for example, could be a washing machine that breaks down, which is something I'm actually waiting for it to happen, because my washing machine at home is starting to make noises that a washing machine shouldn't make. So yeah, got that covered. So having a budget is really cool, but I think you guys are wondering how I'm managing this with a variable income, because that is what I have. I'm self-employed, YouTube AdSense isn't stable, and of course what I make from a business is also not stable. And what is first very important to know is what you actually need to stay alive. And for me this basically is the sum of the fixed costs and the groceries / fuel. This is the minimum amount of money that I need to be making in order to survive. And it's not a big deal if I do make a bit less for 1 or 2 months every year, because that is what an emergency fund is for, and that's also one of the things with a variable income. There are just a few months that you're not making a lot. However, if there's a structural pattern of less money coming in than going out, I do need to change my spending. And this is pretty hard, but it's just a matter of being honest to yourself. And the famous quote, "live on less than you make," really comes into play here. Now, whenever there's more money coming in than I need to stay alive, this extra money is being split over the other accounts using percentages. And the percentages for the accounts fluctuate a little bit because I'm trying to anticipate on future needs. But one basic rule that I have is that I always put 25 to 30% towards my emergency savings. Now, this is how my personal budget works, and my business financials actually work in the same way, although the categories and values are different, of course, but I don't think that is really important. It's really the system that is important and not the values, because they will differ for every person and even every form. Like it's different for my business, then of course it is. Now the next thing I do financially is I avoid debt. And I think some people are surprised by that, but all my equipment, all my stuff, my phone, my car, everything is paid for with cash. I have 0 debt right now. And again, this creates a lot of rest in my life because there are no monthly payments for this stuff, which lowers the monthly costs that I need to survive and increases the amount that I can save. And I also have no reason to go in debt right now. I drive a car that I like, this one. Yeah, it's pink, but it's great. I bought it secondhand for 4,000 euros or something, and it brings me from A to B and back, and it does this very reliably. That's the most important part. And I'm always fueling it up with a big smile every time, since this thing is super economical. And yes, I would love to drive a shiny new Tesla, but do I really need one? I'm pretty certain that I do not need the associated costs of it. Mobile phone, same story. I do tend to buy the flagship model whenever I'm looking for a new phone, but I keep it as long as possible. It either breaks or the software is not supported anymore before I buy a new one. I also do not get a new phone every 2 years with a new subscription or something. I actually think it's more expensive, not sure. Well, yeah, it is more expensive if you use a phone 2 years instead of 4 years. Yeah, it's more expensive. And replacing a phone more often, I'm not sure if that's actually good for our planet. I'm not sure. The last thing I want to talk about is investing. And I want to use this word in the correct sense. How I'm using it is that if you are investing, you are buying things that will make you money in the future. If it doesn't, it's just costs. And a good example is a car. And a car could be a good investment from comfort and safety. And again, I cannot look into your values and financials, but from a financial point of view, a car most of the times is a depreciating asset. So it's costs and not an investment. And that is what I look for when investing. I am investing a little bit on the stock market, but that really shouldn't have a name. Almost all of my major investments are in YC Studio, which is all the gear you see around me. And there are always a few questions that I ask myself before I'm buying new studio toys. One of them is, what will this gear do for me? And a good example is the Cram from Tegler. It's a great master bus compressor, but it has automatic recall. So using it saves me a lot of time. Now, the next question is a bit more subjective, and that is, how long will this thing last? I like to buy gear only once, and I really hate it when things break down. I always like to know a bit more about the quality of a piece of equipment. If it's vintage, I want to know the maintenance status and of course the maintenance needs, which is pretty easy to determine with vintage stuff because it already has been through a lot of years, so people know the status of it. For modern equipment, it's pretty funny. You can almost see it from how it looks and how it feels. And otherwise, it's just a matter of opening the box and taking a look at the components inside, which I think I've done for every piece here. I do not really care for those warranty things. I just open it. As soon as I have enough information, enough answers to these questions, I can really answer the question, do I need and do I want this? If the answer is yes, then I can go ahead and purchase the new piece of gear. Now, the last thing that I want to get out of the way is that I didn't start my career in studio with a lot of cash or something. I didn't win the lottery, and my parents, the last time I checked, they weren't a millionaire. As far as I know, they've never been. So I actually think that I had 150, 160 euros or something when I started, which is now 9 years ago. From a financial perspective, I really built this myself. Of course, I had help in terms of effort, in terms of, giving and stuff. But financially speaking, I've built this by working really hard and living very frugal. Now I'm thinking of making another video on how how the studio actually makes money, because this one was more how to manage it. If you want to see that, leave a comment below. And that is it for this video. I hope that this information could help some of you. In the end, it's your own choice to decide what you're doing with this information. I want to quickly highlight that I'm not a financial advisor or whatever. Should be clear, I'm an audio engineer. I'm just showing my own method, and it's up to you to learn something or do something with it. But I'm not responsible for you doing stupid. If you like this video, then let me know that by giving me a thumbs up. Somewhere, I think I'm mirrored, so it should be, I don't know, give me a they changed the position of the thumbs thing. So if you want to support me, you can do that by pledging a bit to my Patreon campaign, which I'm going to link over here, but only do that if it fits your budget. Another way to support me is by watching more of my videos, which you can do by subscribing or clicking this random video here. Thanks a lot for watching, keep pushing, and bye bye.